All right, my name's Deanne. I'm going to be filling in for Jesse today for the NUTBAL Online user training. I'm the full-time lab tech here, and I help oversee the quality control as your samples make their way through the lab. Again, I want to remind y'all that if you have any questions at all, we're going to address those at the end of the presentation, but feel free to keep sending them in. I see we've got some good questions on there already. And at any time, if I'm going too quick or anything, feel free. You can ask any questions, or you can email us, or feel free to give us a call anytime, and we're more than happy to help you out. All right, so let's get started. Okay, accessing NUTBAL Online. I know y'all some of y'all probably done this before, so I might just be repetitive on here. So we've got our username and password for you to log in. You'll have to create a username if you haven't started an account here before, and then you'll also create a unique password. Try to create something that's easy to remember, but if any times you forget, there's also a Forgot Credentials link that you can click on so you can retrieve your password to log in. And then it'll walk you through a step. It's going to send you a temporary password, and once you get that temporary password emailed to you, you can use that to log in, and you can recreate a new password once you get back in. All right, here's the requesting the login credentials link for you. You'll use your first and last name and then your email address on there, and then this action is going to create your password, and your credentials will be sent to your listed email address. Okay, so once you get in and you're ready to create your account with your address and everything, you are going to go up to the top and click Account and go to Contact Details. Once you click Contact Details, it's going to take you to your contact information page. For this example, we're using our GANLab property on there. So we have our address here. That's our physical address. That is where, for example, for you, that is where you want your kits to be sent. So be sure that we can get something there where those will be able to be shipped and received. This is going to be different from your property information if you have different ranches that are at a different location. So you're going to fill that out there with your phone number, fax if you have it, email address, and everything on there. And be sure once you have that, you're going to click Save at the top. Everything on here, it doesn't automatically save, so there's going to be links at the top, and be sure that you are saving as you make your way through NUTBAL Online. Okay, this is also where once you have if you need to update your password, you could do that on that screen as well. And then you're going to create your property details. If you just have one property and it's at the same location as your contact information, then you can just click on same as customer contact info, and it'll automatically copy everything over there for you. So no need to type that in again. But if you have multiple properties or ranches, this is where you can change the address there, or you can create multiple locations for those larger operations. If no ranches are specified, you will not be able to put in any other information about your pastures or sample description. I know sometimes if you don't have this in here and you're trying to pre-log a sample, if you can't save any information such as your pastures, this could be why. So be sure that you have some information in there under property details if you're going to go to pre-log a sample. All right, this is going to be the property details where you're going to enter that. And so you'll just click that drop down if you want to make a new property on there. And also when you do this, you're going to once you put in that zip code, that's going to drop a pin on the Google Maps down here for where your location is at. If you need to put in a technical advisor, this is also where you can do that as well. And you can choose the option for where your report is going to be sent to. You can have it mailed or emailed to you, or even faxed if that's more convenient. The ranch name, you can put that in and make a unique identifier, contact details. All right, and again, you're just going to hit save up at the top before you move along. Okay, so sampling kits. I know a lot of y'all probably sent out samples to us before. You can request those kits online, or you can give us a call and we'll get that put in for you. Each kit, most of them we're going to send out are going to be in kits of 6. If you want individual kits, we could do that as well. Or if you want multiples, we could do 6, 12, 18. So each kit you're going to get is going to contain styrofoam boxes. If you just do 1, it'll be 1, but if you got that kit of 6, you'll have 6 kits of styrofoam in there, 1 freezer gel pack, 6 of those cardboard shipping boxes that are 9 by 9 by 9 to send your samples back to us, a plain zip top bag, and then a custom zip top bag where you can write all of your sample information, disposable gloves for sampling, a disposable spoon, labels for shipping, and an info packet that contains sample sheets so you can write out all your information for your sample. Each sample has an interior space of 4 by 4 by 4, and it could hold 1 to 2 samples depending on the size of each sample. Of course, you know, we send out 6, but if you just want to put 2 samples in a box, that's okay as well. And we can also do rush requests on these. Our rush requests, you will have additional shipping costs. You won't have to pay the cost of ground, but anything that is the difference between priority shipping and ground, you will have to pay that on your bill. But we can certainly accommodate that. Here's where you're going to go online to request those kits. So you'll still go to account at the top, and then drop down to requested kits. And then you will, this is, for example, when it's already been processed, it was shipped out. It'll show you the date, when you requested, and when it was shipped. You'll click the number of kits you want requested and the location you want them sent to. So if you had a different address or different property, this is where you could select that. And if you want that rush option, you just click it right there. And then this is going to be where you want, when you want those delivered by. The items that are grayed out are when we can't ship, so not on the weekends. But if you want them as early as possible, just click that next available date. Or if you don't want them for a little bit, you know, just whatever day you're wanting those kits shipped out to you, then you'll click on that date. It'll populate there, and then you are going to submit that request when it's ready. Once you submit that request, it's going to show up at the top. It'll show when you request it, and then as it makes its way through the lab and it's being processed and then shipped, that will populate there. If you need to change anything, you can also make changes on there before they're processed and shipped. So you've got one in and you decided that you need to change the date or even delete it, you can do that as well. And again, you're just going to hit submit or update when you make any changes. All right, sample collection. Generally, we receive 6 samples throughout the year, and we like to do that when what benefits you. So for if you want to sample every 2 months, you could do that, or as you rotate pastures. Or even as the seasons change, or something that with the weather that might affect the quality of that forage, then feel free to give us a sample and send them in. But we do ask that you don't send all 6 samples in at the same time. If you can, try to break that up, and we're thinking of you here. So whatever sampling schedule would benefit your operation the best. Okay. The animal should be in the pasture for at least 48 hours prior to collecting that sample. The feces that we scan, they reflect the diet up to 48 hours prior. So we like to generally have those animals there in that pasture for at least 48 hours to have the most accurate results reflecting your forage quality. And also that applies to suspending supplementation on top of the grazing diet as well. When you're sampling, try to get 5 to 10 fresh manure piles. You want to represent the herd, not just a single cow for your operation. So try to do at least 5 to 10 to get a general collective idea of that. And then it's best also to see the actual defecation for the sample to ensure freshness, and also so that the samples are not contaminated. We don't want there to be any urine or rocks or dirt, anything like that that could alter your results. We also want to ask that those samples are as moist and fresh as possible, and no evidence of insects or scratching on there. And then also our model is not as accurate for calves that are 6 months of age or under. So be sure to select those manure piles from your aged cows and not the nursing calves. When you collect, be sure to protect your hands with the disposable gloves that are provided to you in your sampling kit, and not those extra plastic bags that we have. You can use your disposable spoon to skim away the top of the pile, and try to get about half the quart size of the bag that we send there to you, of the 5 to 10 manure piles there, and avoid contamination when you're collecting. Once you have it in that freezer bag, you're going to fill that up, and then you're going to put it into the custom zip top bag. That's the orange bag that we send you, and fill out your identifiers on there. For example, the herd ID, the date collected, and the pasture name on there. And you're going to seal that up. Your sample sheet, if you choose whether you pre-log it or you fill it out, you can fold that up and put it in the slip that's on the side of the bag. We ask that you do that instead of putting it into the bag with the sample, because sometimes we get those samples that have a little bit of seepage in there. We don't want those sample sheets to get wet or ruined where they can't be read once they get to the lab. Again, if you didn't log your sample in online, and I'm about to show you how to log it in online to help you out, but if you just want to fill it out by hand, you're going to send that in there, fill it out, and put it in the pocket of the custom bag. You're going to place the sample into the styrofoam cooler with the gel pack and freeze overnight. When you're ready to ship it, you're going to be sure to tape that securely so the lid doesn't come off of there. And once you got that frozen sample, you can send it back to us in that cardboard box that we provide to you. On here it talks about labeling with the exempt animal specimen. Our boxes are actually custom now, so you don't have to worry about labeling that box. That exempt animal specimen label is already going to be on there for you. And then be sure to send that back 2-day priority mail to us using the Postal Service, FedEx, or UPS. That way when it gets to us, it is as fresh as possible. All right, now let's do the NUTBAL property profiles. This is where you're going to pre-log your sample and enter all of your information. I know that our system is not always the most user-friendly, but hopefully this will help you out a little bit with logging those in. The first thing that you're going to do is create a pasture profile. Your pasture profile tells us the name of your pasture, the size of the acreage that is in that pasture, the amount of forage, the percentage of forage that you plan to remove from that pasture, your vegetation type, for example, native short, native intermediate, or native tall grasses, an annual grain, or an improved pasture, the terrain or slope of your pasture, and the availability of water. Okay, to get to that pastures tab, you're going to go over to the Properties tab and click on Pastures. Then it should automatically come up with New Pasture down there. If you want to look and see if you've got any already created, you can click that drop down and it'll bring up anything you've already have saved in there. If you're ready to create a new tab, you can just leave it on New Pasture. Once you do that, it's important that you click on that map to drop a pin before you start working on your pasture information. Once you drop that pin, that's going to allow everything to save. If you haven't dropped your location by clicking on the map, it is not going to allow you to save any information that you enter in here. So be sure to click on it and drop your location of your pasture. And this doesn't have to be exact, it's just an approximation, and it'll drop it about where your location's at. So you can log in your pasture name, create a unique identifier for that, and a description of your pasture. You can enter there your number of acres, and again, the harvest use efficiency, or the amount of forage that you plan to remove from the pasture, vegetation cover, and the terrain. Once you have all that information entered in, again, you're going to go back up here and save that information. Once you save it, you'll be able to see it up here under the Pastures tab. The next thing you want to do is create an animal profile. Your animal profiles are going to automatically generate when you're creating that sample. So these, you're going to be able to enter information such as what breed, what age, whether you have cows, steers, heifers, bulls, and then you can also create multiple profiles. So if you have different varieties of animals that are in your pastures, this is where you're going to be able to add multiple profiles to represent your herd. Changes to the entry of a profile will affect your samples, past, present, and future. So if you click on a profile that's already been created, that is going to affect anything that's been used with that profile, and it's already linked to it. So be sure to keep that in mind. Here's where you're going to go to create those animal profiles. You just click on that tab. So anything that's already been in there is going to automatically populate the species, which we can only enter in the species and everything for cattle on our model right now. The type, the date of birth, and then the age over here. Here's where you can create a new profile. You can enter in a description, for example, of your profile, but that's only optional. The kind, the gender, the breed, the number of head, and this number of head in there, that can be manipulated. For example, if you want to reuse a profile, and this is designed where you can reuse them, that number for the number of head can be manipulated if your number of head changes from year to year or from the next time you sample. And then an average birth date of the animals. And this also, you don't want to, it's the average birth date that's not including the nursing animals. Once you have the information entered, you're going to save that profile. When it's saved, it will come back up here under the profile. So that's how you know it's been created. And I just want to mention on here too, if you have animals that are lactating, some that are lactating and have calves, and then you still have animals that are heavy bred, this is where you're going to create two separate profiles for those animals, because once you're using those profiles to log your sample in, each one, you won't be able to use the same profile for each one of those. you'll have to create 2 separate profiles in order to do that. But they are, again, reusable to help you track progress over time. Once you're ready to include the description of your sample and log in your information, here's where you're going to go to do so. And this is where you'll enter your information online, and then you'll print out that sheet with everything already logged in and sent back if you choose not to hand fill out the information. You're going to start with you'll click New Sample for a new one, and then cattle selected there for you, and then the sample date. This is going to be when you took the sample. And then if you want an advisory report, this is also where you can click it at the top. Then you're going to make your way through the tabs down here, starting with the Livestock tab. Once you get to the Livestock tab, this is where, oh, I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. This is where you'll have the animal profiles you've created, and you'll have the option to choose those. So you just click on that drop down and do the animal profile that you wish to use for the particular sample. And then it'll give you options for the animal categories, such as mature, or if they're younger, it'll give you options for whether the animals are spayed or not, or pre-puberty. And then also, if you have male cattle, it'll give you an option for castrated or bulls. Here's where you're going to manipulate that number of head on there, so just let us know the amount of head. Then we'll get into the frame and the body condition score. So your frame score or index is going to be about like the skeletal size of the animal there, and that you can, when you manipulate that, the body condition and the frame score are going to affect the weight that shows up. So there's some tools here that we have to help you figure that out on there, but what you do there is going to affect the weight. So you'll enter in that frame index for the skeletal size, and then the body condition score. We also have some tools that are available to help you estimate those if you're not very familiar with body condition or frame score available. And then the approximate weight of your animals is going to be right there. Then you'll go to days lactating and days pregnant. So how many days have those, if your animals have calved, how many days have they been nursing? And or if your cattle are bred, how many days have they been bred? This is also, like I mentioned, 2 different profiles. If, for example, if you had animals that have just calved, this is where you're going to enter the days lactating, and then the days pregnant, if they've just calved, will be 0. If you want to add in for the other population that's still heavy bred, you're going to go back in and create a separate profile for those animals. You can enter in the desired daily gain about how much you want your cattle to gain right here, and an approximation of the parasite load. And also you have the option to enter in an implant. Maybe if you have steers that have Ralgro or a different steroid implant in there, this will give you that option. And any additional comments. If you do have comments, though, there's under the pasture tab an area there that's more handy for those comments because it gives you more character availability. So on body condition score, we use a 1 to 9 system. We generally want your cattle to be between 4 and 6 for your body condition score. And 8 or a 9 is going to be harder to achieve, especially that 9. If you're at a 9, you're definitely seeing some lameness issues. You've got some extremely obese cattle, but the 9s are going to be pretty hard to achieve. If you've got a pretty average herd, or where you want to be is in between that 4 and 6 range on there. As producers, you know your cattle, and I'm sure you're probably fairly familiar with the body condition of them. Up here, we've also got some calculation tools to help you approximate body condition and the frame score at the very top. So you'll enter in the available profile and the age, and then you can manipulate these frame and body condition scores to help you get an idea of where you might be. Once you have your information entered under the Livestock tab, be sure to click Add Profile. You'll know that it's saved to the profile when it comes up at the top. There. This is also where you'll see multiple profiles come up when it's saved successfully. And then you're going to go to the Pasture tab. This top comments box is where I mentioned that you can enter in any additional comments that you have. This is also where you'll see any comments that we write, such as the herd and pasture identifiers. It gives a pretty good character limit on this, so feel free to put anything additional in this box. Your pasture, you're going to choose the one that you already created from the drop-down, and then you can select the growth rate, whether your pasture is declining or dormant or drought, flowering or seeding, or if it's in rapid growth at the moment. Then you'll go and select an ionophore from the drop-down if you've got one that you're using, such as Monensin. And you can select the days in the period, the days that your animals have been in that grazing period. Then you're going to go to the Feeds tab at the top. For supplemental feeds, again, we ask that you discontinue those 48 hours prior to sampling and only include supplemental feeds that will be continued to be fed over the next 30 days. Supplements with protein should be entered here. If you have minerals, salt or minerals that are being fed that don't contain protein, you can add a comment if you'd like, but we ask that you don't enter those into your feeds tab. Also, any additional forages are going to be a comment as well, or roughage rather. So alfalfa or any hay that you're being fed there, that's going to show up in that as part of the forage. So you will add a comment for that, but the hays don't need to be entered into the supplemental feeds tab. Again, this is where hay doesn't need to be entered as a fed. Just leave us a note that will tell us that you've been eating hay and the rate that hay is being fed. If you don't remove your hay before sampling, the diet quality measure will include that as a contribution to the forage quality. Once you select, we have a bunch of different feeds that are commonly used already in there. You can click that drop down and it'll bring up a good list there. For example, we've got a 20% cubes that's in there. If your cubes are not 20%, you can manipulate that once it automatically populates. For example, it'll come up the crude protein that automatically populates, and feel free to change that on there as well. You can also enter the cost and the amount fed to your cattle, and then a minimum and maximum amount fed and the frequency of feeding. Enter all that in, and then you're going to click the Add Feed tab. Similar with the Animal Profile tab, it's going to come back up here once it's been saved. That's how you know it's been saved. And once you do that, you are going to save the description at the top. If you do not click Save Description, all of the information you've entered won't be saved to that sample. So it's really important that you hit Save Description up at the top. When you hit Save Description, it's going to come up with your sample number here. That's going to be the number that your sample as it makes its way through the lab. This is also one thing that you can write on that bag that you're sending in to us, along with the pre-log sample sheet. Let's close.